Welcome to the Undiscovered Metric, where each month we interview industry leaders and explore how to measure what matters and stay ahead of the trends shaping marketing's future. I'm your host, Sam Holly, and today we're joined by Madalina Head of Marketing at HYDROGRID, to discuss scaling marketing efforts and data strategy. Welcome to the podcast. Could you tell us a bit about yourself? And for those who aren't familiar with HYDROGRID, could you give us a quick snapshot of what you do there?
Hi, Sam. Great to see you again. Thank you so much for having me. A little bit about myself. I'm Madalina. I'm a Romanian marketer living in Vienna. And for the past 15 years of my marketing career, I've tried different hats in marketing. I started out with digital marketing, then switched to communication and PR, performance marketing, and ultimately demand generation. But since I moved in Vienna around 7 years ago, I specialized in supporting B2B SaaS companies in their scale-up journey. Now I lead marketing at HYDROGRID, and HYDROGRID is a SaaS solution for the hydropower industry. So it's very niche industry. Here we help hydropower operators run their plants more efficiently with the help of smart technology. And in simple terms, I would say that we make sure that the plants get the most of every drop of water. That being said, we help them sell both based on market and inflow prediction data. We help them plan maintenance at the most efficient time for their business. We help them value their water resources at all times, so almost in real time. We help them avoid spilling, and also we help them make better decisions through data. And in my role here, I am leading and building the marketing function. For the moment, we are covering product marketing, growth marketing, marketing ops, and brand. And I make sure that we run all these marketing areas smoothly in order to ensure scalability in the business.
Amazing. Mads, thank you so much for such an interesting, long career at this point, going through all those different hats, as you said, of every different marketing role possible, I think, at this point. I guess, obviously, you've worked at several companies. They've been at very different growth stages as well. How would you describe that thread that's run through your career so far?
As you notice, my career path has been anything but linear, I think. And also I've moved from a bit more technical to creative roles. But since I've worked in many industries alongside my career, and I think I've experienced almost everything from one-person marketing teams to larger marketing teams and entrepreneurship as well, I'd say that the common thread is possibly the fact that I have always been customer-centric. So regardless of the role that I've had, I focused on deeply understanding the audience, the value proposition that we want to go to market with. And I've always tried to balance, creative tactics and the rigor of data into my kind of actions. And I think that's what actually helped me in every role, make marketing a bit more measurable, actionable, and ultimately impactful. That I looked not only at the data that we had in the business, but also a little bit further.
Of course, going beyond the kind of the regular metrics that you might be looking at, you could even say, going to the undiscovered metric, perhaps. For all those, sorry, I had to. So having seen all of these different companies kind of scale their data operations, let's start with the negatives first. Where would you say you've most often noticed cracks in those setups as the companies are growing? Are there any early indicators that warn you that actually that marketing data setup won't scale much further without a rethink?
It's depended very much on the scale of the business, I would say, the response to this question. But I would say that the cracks in data usually happen when teams and the same team usually are basing decisions on the wrong metrics. So they are looking at the same metric but have different values for it, or when there is not enough data volume to make statistically sound decisions, but people still use data as justification for their decisions. Of course, I've also seen teams that have absolutely no data governance, no inconsistent naming conventions, disconnected systems, or the worst, they are relying only on, as I've said previously, on quantitative data to inform their decisions, and they are ignoring completely qualitative insights from real customers or real prospects when they're making marketing decisions. And then as companies are growing, the biggest red flag is when different teams report different numbers for the same metric, I would say. That's a clear sign that you would have to rethink a bit the data strategy. Now for an early stage startup, the things are different. Here, you need to be simple and super precise. So you need to actually simplify and measure fewer things, but with more accuracy. You would want the early success indicators from marketing and also the big picture, but you don't want to over-engineer details that in the end can be super subjective when you are interpreting data. So that's, I think, the difference between small scale ups and when you actually scale up a bit further.
And the companies start to get bigger, of course.
Yes.
So keep it simple, keep it as simple as possible, make sure the data is as accurate as it possibly can be as well. And then actually that each team is using the correct numbers and using the same numbers as each other as well. Totally makes sense. It sounds like you're speaking from experience as well here. What is one mistake that you made early on that you wouldn't repeat again when you're scaling up?
That's a humbling question. And I've made many mistakes alongside my career. I think that's how you learn the fastest. The biggest one that I made when trying to scale up businesses is trying to scale too quickly or relying on my previous experience from different companies, different setups, different industries to do it just because I had good results. So when you have some successes elsewhere, you tend to, prove results quicker in the new companies that you're joining or helping out. But I think the reality is that scaling a business means a bit more than relying on previous experience. And as I said in the beginning, you actually need to rely on deep industry expertise and understanding, and also the most important thing, customer and audience knowledge. So you need to be in the sales calls. You can't skip those ones. You need to actually listen to prospecting calls, to join your customer success team, for example, to understand how your users are using the product and what are the issues there. And then in order to build something meaningful, I think you need to nail down the basics of marketing first. So yes, you need the solid data foundation. And if you are just starting, you need to keep it as simple as possible so everyone can understand it and use it in the same way. So you have common definitions. Then you need real conversations with your target audience. That's the most important thing. You need a clear understanding of which segments can actually scale, because even when you are in a niche industry, you can't scale with everything that you offer or everything that you've got. And then a strong, consistent message. And then from there, you need to measure regularly everything that you're doing, use all type of data, as I mentioned at the beginning. And most importantly, I think is, approach scaling with a little bit of humility. And always, ask the question, why? But why is this so? When you're looking at data. Because yes, data nowadays can tell us a lot, but depending on who reads it, it can have a different interpretation.
Yeah, of course. Looking at something like a dashboard could mean very different things to different people.
Exactly.
So really important to understand the why behind all of that. And I love the idea of, again, I think this speaks to your customer centric way of like getting into those calls. So you know what prospects are actually saying, you know what your customers are actually saying as well, so that you can adapt that into the messaging, exactly as you said. So I think that's really important. Because of your the history of the companies you've been through as well, you've seen small scale data environments, you've seen large scale data environments. What skills would you say become more important as you move from maybe that smaller setup to that larger environment?
So as you move from small to larger scale, the things you measure become a lot more complex. And also the tools that you use have a little bit of complexity. So I think that's why it's critical when you move to a larger scale that the whole company reports on the same business KPIs. And that breaks them down into department metrics afterwards. And these metrics are super simple and the same at the team level. So I would say that as you scale, the skills that become most important, or the skill that becomes the most essential one, is actually communication, because everyone needs to speak the same language. You need the same definitions, as I've said. You need the same naming conventions. You need a shared understanding of why data matters, on how it influences other teams and how its data actually processed. Because some people might need to understand what's behind to really understand why it matters. The most critical skills become then clear communication, stakeholder alignment, from the beginning. And again, the ability to simplify, because when you try to scale something, there is a lot of noise and there are a lot of ideas. And I would say that clarity is what always keeps everything on track. If you're clear on your objectives, on what you measure, why you're measuring it, even when there are just a few metrics, if you do it properly and look at the right things, then you can scale.
Yeah, of course. Going into that larger environment usually means more cooks in the kitchen as well. So I love the idea of make sure everyone is on the same page, keep everyone using the same language, because you're right, communication is absolutely key when it gets to those larger data environments, because the moment that one person starts doing something different that's unexpected, everyone's looking at different numbers, and suddenly it doesn't matter whether you're in that large scale or small scale data environment, somebody's getting the wrong information. And it makes that why even harder to find, I think.
I completely agree.
Speaking of, obviously, with the current environment we find ourselves in, I would be remiss without asking you how AI is obviously changing the way that marketers scale their efforts as well. So have you seen much of that across like the channels, the departments? How is that impacting you currently?
It's not just a trend, it's what we're living, and without any doubt, what we've seen in the past 3 years at least. It's mind-blowing, especially for marketers, yes, but also for other departments. So first of all, conversational AI and machine learning are completely changing the game in data analytics. I think today data can be cleaned and used a lot faster and more accurately. First of all, you can simply ask a platform to build your report on your tracked metrics, and no BI skills required. There's no need for that necessarily. Suddenly you have this, quick instant answers to complex data questions that before you needed to rumble with the data and do a lot of manual work. I would say today, as long as the data connections and the data governance is in place, the speed and accessibility that the AI brings marketers and usually the entire organization, and not only marketing teams, closer to insights and actionable insights, because it's just easier to work with data when you have these tools, right? It's completely transforming the game in marketing, because you can analyze everything quicker across channels, across departments, and for organizations as well.
And so I think from all the things that you've said so far, right, we need really clear communication between those different teams. We've got AI making, I liked how you said, right, you don't necessarily need like deep skills to be able to do some of this analysis anymore. Like AI can help you do some of that really, really quickly, really automatically. But that means we have data teams, creative teams. We've got so many different departments across businesses to align on how we should be scaling and how their marketing strategies should be scaling as well. So I think from that communication side, from all the other elements you've mentioned, are there any specific best practices or knowledge sharing approaches that you've seen work really well?
I think it's just the standard. I've never seen anything working well without a good culture. I think one of the best things that you can have in an organization, because this is always a challenge, aligning teams. I think it's one of the biggest challenges that an organization can have. So from my perspective, at least, success and collaboration requires a healthy culture, and this culture needs to be maintained intentionally. And then clear communication of goals, metrics, KPIs from top to bottom, as I've said before, because without this alignment, I think teams will still act in silos regardless of the data quality that we have in place. Best practices, I don't know, to kind of support this collaboration, maybe, yes, cross-functional workshops, knowledge sharing sessions, when you're just starting out with the entire team. Perhaps, yes, a visualization tool that is shared across the entire organization with just a few metrics to track. So you can look at the same things at all time, and where the business is heading, where everyone is heading,
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult thing to pin down, right? You need, I think you said it really well, that you need all the teams looking at the same thing. They need to be speaking the same data languages. They need to be looking at all these metrics together in harmony, effectively, for it to work well. But I think you're totally right as well. Without that culture element, which definitely can be underpinned by those kind of like the metrics and the marketing world, if everyone's aiming in the same direction, rather than having people looking like one team trying to do one thing, one team really focus on something completely different, that makes it very difficult for everyone to scale any operation effectively then, because you'll have everyone trying to achieve their own goals, not really worrying about what the other team might be doing as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. We have some questions that we ask every guest as well. So let's go through those ones. What is one overlooked metric that marketers should pay more attention to? For
me, the most overlooked metric, I would say it's the share of voice, as for anyone else. But lately is the share of voice on AI searches and your brand term evolution in Search Console. So, for example, if you see that your brand is growing over time, yes, in Search Console, that should be a good health sign for your business in general. Because that means that regardless how people find you, they find you. And you grow steadily and nicely. So I think this is the most, in my opinion, but maybe it's not the most overlooked. It's something that I haven't seen that many businesses are paying attention to how their brand term searches are evolving. And I think it's really cool to have a look at this, because in the end, it doesn't matter what's working, because sometimes even with good attribution, you don't really know. But if you know that all the efforts are working in a joint effort nicely together, then that should be the one.
I think that's a really helpful one. Thank you. Yeah, like find how people are finding you and track that over time. See what changes, see what works, because then you can easily adapt to find something that works better for you as well. And particularly with more and more search coming from particular AI tools as well, like super interesting to see how that might be changing over time as well. Thank you. What common mistakes do marketers make when putting together a data strategy?
I think I mentioned that before, is overlooking the overarching business goals. Because if you don't kind of set your objectives top bottom, then your objectives will not speak the business objectives, basically. And at some point, a disconnect will be created, yes?
Yeah, sometimes easier not to overcomplicate or overstretch yourself.
Keep it simple. Yeah, keep it simple, because it works every time.
Always. Thank you so much. Okay, last one from our side. What are your go-to resources for marketing news and trends?
Yeah, so because I don't have that much time lately, being the head of marketing and mother, usually I use LinkedIn to kind of read what other people in the industry are saying, and I stick with reliable sources and kind of thought leaders in specific areas for years now. So, for example, what comes to my mind? I don't know. I follow Refine Labs members for demand generation. even when now Chris is out of Refine Lab. I still follow the other guys. I follow Rand Fishkin for ACO related topics, Jasmine Alik for LinkedIn thought leadership and content things. There are a few guys like Andrei Zinevic for ADM, of course Elena Verna, and the guys from Fletch for product marketing. Peter, I think I don't recall the second name, but he's the CEO of Databox, and I follow him for kind of data analytics related things. And then I enjoy a lot listening to podcasts on Spotify, and one that I love is B2B SaaS marketing snacks. It's super short, and they have great hosts and also great people who join the podcast, and Measure School is another one that I enjoy. So yeah, it's usually the usual, LinkedIn, Spotify, and YouTube when I'm looking into something more like detailed explanation or videos.
Thank you, Madalina, for sharing your insights today. We really appreciate your time and expertise. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and rate the podcast. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep exploring those undiscovered metrics.